Welcome everybody to another faith-free family moment. The topic we've been talking about is stress and how to handle it, how to face it. And we've talked a couple things about it, tried to define a little bit and maybe just share some different ways we become stressed and what God's Word says about His role in how we face stress. And I mentioned and read a passage yesterday where Jesus says, "Come to me, all you who are weary and heavy laden." Weary and heavy laden, those words get my attention. Psalm 46, which we also read, the stress the psalmist found relief from, was just uncertainty in his life. 2 Corinthians 6, the Apostle Paul found great relief from the stress he had. One researcher defines stress as the non-specific response of the body to any demand placed upon it. Interesting definition. Some stress is unavoidable, let's be honest. In fact, there's a positive stress. It's necessary for human beings to function adequately, I would think. Many students need the stress of an examination to push them to study. A soldier needs the stress from an inspection to make sure that they follow the disciplines necessary. It helps them. But life can produce stress that, well, it's more than people can handle. It's overwhelming. They don't feel adequately equipped. And when riddled with stressors, we need to identify what these are. We need to make sure that we know exactly what we're facing stress from if we're going to equip ourselves or defend ourselves from it. So what are some things that may be some different areas of stress that you and I need to identify? One is change. Do not underestimate change. I personally don't mind change. I don't mind some of the dynamics that come with it, but I think I probably underestimate the price that I pay and that maybe you pay for change. You see, the greater the change, the higher the risk. Many don't know how to manage the pace of change. Churches face great change, and with it comes the potentiality for great stress. Decisions, for some, decision making is incredibly difficult. They have a hard time pulling the trigger, and it brings great stress. Trying to please everybody, the stress only intensifies. Mobility, it's really the subset of change is moving. People move because of perceived advantages, maybe. Each move requires adapting, and when you adapt, accompanied oftentimes is stress. Expectations. You find an increased stress in our expectations, especially when we don't think they're being met. Time pressure. You ever feel a time crunch? Like, I got to get this done now, and man, all of a sudden we start to feel a heavy blanket of stress. The clock dominates our schedules. We have more activities, we have more deadlines to meet, and we get greater stress. Time pressure has caused thousands to outrun their hearts. Let's say it again. Time, pressure, and schedules have caused many to outrun their hearts. When it happens, there's great stress. Fear. Child goes to a first day of new school. There's stress. Some believe it's the root of all stress, actually. There's no control. The list is endless. Relationships. Now, intact, supportive relationships we all require for healthy living. But stress can come in relationships. You know that to be true. Overload. The entity of concern is not what overloaded with, but overloaded itself. Illness and death. The older it seems more susceptible to illness, comes great stress. Anger. Anger blocks the ability to use stress in a positive way. Virtually assure painful and destructive results. You see, you and I need to know how to handle stress. And one way to handle it is to identify what it is that's stressing you out. Because only when we identify it and identify the stressors can we then intentionally and prayerfully bring them before the Father, who, as Psalm 46:1 says, is an ever-present help in time of trouble. I encourage you today, identify what is creating stress in your life and prayerfully come before the Father, call that stressor on the carpet, and let it go to a God who's an ever-present help. I hope you have a blessed day, everybody.